Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Now today I'm actually going to be going through what is on my TBR for the month of September, and let's talk about some books. So right now I have 4 books planned, and that is because they are rather large, so you'll see just in a second. Last month, as you'll see on Thursday in my August wrap-up, I actually managed to get through my entire TBR, thanks to the fact that when my wife and I had our son, we spent a day and a half in the hospital, so I burned through Andromeda Strain sitting in the hospital waiting for my son to be born. And then I actually snuck in a horror book by Chad Nicholas, which was Nightmare, and that review is up as well. Really enjoyed that, but let's talk about September. Starting with Book 2 of the Great Coats, Night's Shadow. So if you have not read Traitor's Blade, please go read that, because that book is nonstop, action-packed, fun, excitement. I absolutely adored that book. My review is right here for that as well. Follows this band of characters similar to the Three Musketeers, your main character Falcio, and then his buddies Kest and Brasty, and then a whole slew of other side characters that join them in their adventure as well. This is sometimes lighthearted, there's a lot of humor, but there is a lot of violence as well. There are some very dark moments, there are some sexual moments, there's all kinds of things that go on in this first book. So you follow these 3 main characters who are well, not really former Greatcoats, they are still Greatcoats, but the Greatcoats had a falling out. They were basically servant to the king. The king was overthrown by all these dukes that want to rule the land anyway, and the Greatcoats were essentially disbanded. So you follow these characters kind of like after they're sort of washed up, and the Greatcoats are a joke. They're called Tattered Cloaks. They're just looked down on in society, but you follow them through their adventure of this book. Lots of action, lots of sword fights, lots of witty humor. This book was a blast. The first one was only about 400 or so pages. It's a super quick read. Took a couple of days for me and many others. I know Mike is doing a review for this, so you'll see that coming up soon. Alan over at the Library of Allenxandria had a fantastic review of that, so I'll link his channel down below. He might actually have enjoyed this book more than I did, as he lets you know in his review. But it was fantastic. It was one of my favorite reads of this year. So much fun, and I cannot wait to see where it continues in Night's Shadow. And also, it's endorsed by John Gwynn. If you have not read any of The Faithful and the Fallen, please do so, because that series is awesome. And I feel really bad that I haven't gotten back to it, so I will do that at some point. Next up, I'm going to add a little bit of romance here with my boy Rand and the Lord of Chaos. See that? Nice little romance. It was a bad joke, I'm sorry. I took the month of August off of the Wheel of Time, and the reason I did that, hold on, gotta have the book back there, guys, is, if you can see behind me, I have the entire series except for The Eye of the World. Just ignore that little mass market paperback. It's not there. Shh. I'm replacing it later. I got all the hardcovers, so I was waiting for these books to arrive. I decided to take a break after 5 books in a row of the Wheel of Time. Now I'm stepping back into it with Lord of Chaos, which is freaking huge. So this month is going to have a couple of massive books. So, I mean, even Night's Shadow, the Greatcoats book 2, is about 600 pages. So it's stepping up the size from Traitor's Blade. And Lord of Chaos is damn near 900,000 pages, whatever it is. It's the biggest Wheel of Time book to this point that I've read. And I mean, shit, look, the second half of this series are just like massive, 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 massive. So 1 book at a time, 1 book per month. I mean, if you're this far on the Wheel of Time, you're kind of locked in. I adore the series. Fires of Heaven wasn't the best experience for me. I did think it was a little bit slower, but there's so much build-up and so much good detail in it that after talking with people this entire last month about it, I definitely like it more than I did before. I still don't have it as my favorite. I think that still goes to The Shadow Rising, but Fires of Heaven definitely is probably like a top 3 for me now. Definitely, I think I enjoyed it a little bit better than Dragon Reborn. I still like my experience in The Eye of the World. It's just such a good introduction to the series, but definitely looking forward to Lord of Chaos in a couple of days. Next up, we have another absolutely gigantic book, and that is The Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, which is book 2 of the Stormlight Archive. There's something on me. I swear whenever I record, I get like bugs and stuff on me. It's weird. So Words of Radiance, I hope is as advertised. People say it really shines. Shallan is the main focus of this book, as I understand it, and I'm expecting a lot more, not necessarily payoff, but a little bit, I guess, of payoff from book one, because if you've watched my review here, I did really like Way of Kings, but it was very slow for me, and it took me nearly 40% of the book to actually really get going and into it. And I am kind of all in at this point. I'm trying to catch up for Rhythm of War in November, because I do have that pre-ordered. I want to have this series caught up before that happens. And that book's like 1,200 some pages, and so is this one. So 1,200 or so pages is probably going to take me at least 12 to 14 days. So this is why, I mean, between this and Lord of Chaos, that's 2,100, almost 2,200 pages of content that I have to get through. So that's going to take the bulk of my month. So that plus Night Shadow, that's basically what I expect to get done in the month of September, because I will be going back to work. I'll be off of paternity leave, so I will have less time to read. So I'm really banking on those 3 books being what I read. I want to see more backstory on Shallan. I want to see where her character's going after what happened in the Way of Kings. I want to see, who she's really going to turn out to be in this world because of what is revealed about her in the first book. I really want to follow a little bit more of Dalinar. I feel like he wasn't necessarily sprinkled into the Way of Kings, but I want to learn more about him. I do understand that Oathbringer is really his book, so I probably won't get as much Dalinar as I'm expecting to or want to. It's really going to be Shallan heavy, and that's cool because I like her as well. But Dalinar was my favorite character from book 1, so I hope he at least gets some more growth in this book as well. And Kaladin too. I mean, Kaladin really grew on me throughout the first book. Szeth as well. I hope he's not just in interlude chapters. I want to see more of his character, and especially the way that the first book ends, I really am interested in some of his interactions that he's going to have. Basically, I hope it's not just a lot of buildup, because if it starts out the same way that Way of Kings did, where I'm about, 400, 500 pages into a 1,200 page book, and I'm kind of just like, it's all still world building, that would be sort of a letdown. So I'm hoping it's a little bit faster paced, not necessarily just strictly combat or anything like that, but I want to see, the scope of this, where it's really going from the way that the first book ended, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. And Rhythm of War, of course, is absolutely hyped through the roof right now, so I hope that I fall in love completely with Words of Radiance, and I just barrel through Oathbringer, and I will be ready for Rhythm of War. Okay, so if I do manage to get through all 3 of those books, and I still have a couple of days left, I am trying to fit in at least one more book, and I have promised that I was going to be stepping into a little bit of horror, thriller. Nightmare was my first toe into the pool for that, and I really wanted to get into some classics as well, so I did pick up some of the things that, if you have watched my top horror that I want to read, Dracula, Frankenstein, some Edgar Allan Poe, Lovecraft, stuff like that, I have picked up several of those. And I went to Books A Million the other day, and they had these awesome special edition, like anniversary editions of these books. So I'm going to try to, if I have time, get into Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Now this is, and the reason I'm holding this is the 200th anniversary edition. So it's got awesome red pages. It's kind of like a leathery feel, which is super cool. And there's illustrations throughout. Let me step over here and present it, shall we? So, I mean, I have no idea really what to expect out of the story. Like, I understand, Frankenstein's monster. I understand what he means to kind of like the horror genre. But there's just these super cool, like, just interesting artwork throughout the whole thing. And it's not super long. It's a couple hundred pages. And obviously, you have full artwork pages, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. That will be kind of like my first, not even first horror, I guess, but like my first classic horror, because I also picked up Dracula, like I said, and a couple of other things. So I'm really looking forward to getting into some horror. No sci-fi this month, but I am looking forward to getting into some other standalone sci-fis as well as series. So I think once I get through Wheel of Time, which will take a couple more months, and I'm caught up on Stormlight, Dresden Files, some other like really long series that I'm getting through, I will have more time to mix in more sci-fi and more horror, shorter series as well. But for now, I am just stepping away from sci-fi, and I'll come back to it in October, as well as probably Oathbringer. So spoiler alert, it's going to be Oathbringer, a Wheel of Time book, and then whatever else I can fit in, because, again, that's going to be half my month is those 2 books. So that is what is on my TBR for September. But what is on yours? Have you read these books? Do you like Frankenstein, for example, or, you know, Stormlight, one of your favorite series? Drop in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on anything that I'm planning on reading, anything you're planning on reading. That's going to do it for my TBR for September. So, as always, like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. And until next time, guys, keep reading.